Do you know what a rather sad thought I had the other day? Is that child stars have never known what it's like to have a normal life. We all know that the jury of the sheeple, right, is quick to judge those in the limelight, right? Because it's easy to judge from outside the club when you can't even get in, right? But not even just that. Like, I've noticed that people have a tendency to assume that certain other people know things that they know, other people have experienced things they've experienced. And so a lot of times celebrities get called out of touch, tone deaf, etc. But do you know what I was thinking to myself? The people who are really the victim of this situation is actually the child stars, because at no point did they ever actually get to live a normal life. So whatever normal life we could be referencing or thinking that they should understand this or they should understand that, they've never had that. And that's actually really sad. And I've thought about this recently quite a lot, because I've been thinking about like children and what age do I think is reasonable or whatever for them to be in any kind of limelight or even work itself. Because I do believe that childhood is the time where you're supposed to find yourself and find your path in life. I do believe that was the purpose. That's why children are imaginative. That's why they want to try new things. I don't believe childhood was a time for work or anything of the sorts. So I've been going back and forth about a lot of these concepts in my mind, trying to think what's actually appropriate for kids and what isn't. And I thought to myself, you know what? How sad is it? Like, because I was thinking, the thing that made me really think about this at first was actually Jojo Siwa, because Jojo Siwa's had a lot of backlash at the moment for whatever things that are going on. But then it made me think about the other celebrities, like your Britneys, your Justin Timberlakes, your like, that age group where they like, when they were very, very young, they were all being like auditioning and like being cast in like shows as kids. Like they were the ones who were on shows with like Barney and all these things, like which like I grew up with. And I was thinking to myself, by that point in their life, they're like 7, 8, 9, whatever. So they've had a very minimal taste of just a normal life. You know what I mean? A normal life where the adults that came before them or the adults around the time would have at least maybe gone to high school before they became famous, or, knowing what, I mean? They would have had some kind of like normal existence for a while. But for them, not that long into them being like completely aware of the fact that they're alive and all of that, they're being thrust into the spotlight. They're being thrust into this like system that's completely different to how most people are living. So of course, when they get a bit older, it kind of makes sense that the way they behave doesn't make sense to anybody, because they've not really lived a life like anyone. And this is something I think people is a really huge weakness about humans in general, is that we have this tendency to like put our assumptions of life onto somebody else without taking into account the context of where that person is coming from. So I'll give you guys an example using myself of what I mean, and then you can go on to kind of get where what the essence of what I'm trying to say. So to this day, as an adult, right, I'm very slow at reading a clock, right? And it's not because I don't understand how to read a clock. I do understand how to read a clock. But because I moved around a lot in the first like 8 years of my life, predominantly most of the moving that I did, I was born in the United States. We moved just before I turned 5 in the UK, turned 6, nearly turned 7, moved to Africa, to Zimbabwe, lived in Zimbabwe till I was nearly 8, moved back to the UK, right? In the midst of all of that, that actually affected my education quite significantly, because I would like pick up and miss things, and I'd be picking up this curriculum here and that curriculum there and that curriculum there. So there's a few certain little things to do with like childhood and to do with just education that I just didn't have or got missed along the way because I was just hippity-happening around. I don't recommend you do that with your children, by the way, guys. In the world, give your children stability. Do you know one thing that I dream of? The one thing I dream of giving my children, if I ever have them, is, that thing that I used to see in the movies. I always used to think about this, where like you live in a house and then your like parents draw on a wall somewhere everybody's height as their age goes up. I would love to do that, because like I've never lived anywhere long enough as a kid to like have that experience, and I always thought that was so cool that people did that. Like they lived in one house long enough, or they had like their house that there was like their childhood home that their parents still have. Like I always thought that was so cool. Anyway, so I recognize when people say like, why is it so difficult for you to read a clock? And you're an adult, you should know how to read a clock. I know how to do it, but because I learned it later and I kind of half learned it and then had to half teach myself, and had to basically teach myself more so as an adult, I'm slower at doing it because it wasn't something that was so easily taught to me as a kid that I can now just do as quickly as other people do it. It takes me a lot longer. Not to say that it takes me 20 minutes, but it does take me a little bit longer to just like, okay, yep, the second hand is there. What's the second hand again? Like it does take me like maybe a minute or two longer, which again doesn't help because it's a clock, so it's moving still. But I'm smart enough to figure that part out. But you get the gist, right? So it's one of those things that people who haven't been like saying an experience like I have just think offhandedly, like, how could you not know how to do that? You know what I mean? And it's like, because I don't. You know what I mean? Because of my experience. It's similar to like when it comes to things like, I haven't watched a lot of movies. People are always surprised of how many movies I haven't seen, like considered classics. On the one hand, I grew up with when my parents were in the United States, for example, when a lot of things we weren't allowed to watch, anything to do with witchcraft, anything like that, any Harry Potters, any witch this, witch whatever, no. Pokemon, Pocket Monsters, no. You know what I'm saying? On the other side was, again, because of the traveling, depending on where we were living, depending on what we were watching. When we were in Zimbabwe, for example, most of the stuff we used to watch was on DVD and video anyway. So a lot of things that other people have seen, I haven't seen. So people are like, you haven't seen this movie? And I'm like, no way you haven't seen this movie. No, I haven't seen it. I have never seen it. You know what I'm saying? People always shocked when I say I watched The Matrix for the first time in 2022. I think it was in 2021. It's the first time I watched The Matrix. I think it's end of 2001, early 2022. It's the first time I've seen The Matrix. Anywho, so the point is, people have a tendency to assume. This is what made me think about the child stars. Because I was thinking, they must have that, but like in an extreme sense. So like everywhere they look, like everything that they're used to, they're used to things working is just completely different to the average person. And hence why a lot of the behaviors and things that they do just doesn't make sense to others. And it's because you're not there, and they're not where we are, so they don't get us, and we're not where they are, so we don't get them. So of course things don't make any sense. And that's one thing that I have to say I've been noticing more and more isn't helpful in society at large, is when people do this thing of like, oh, you should have this, you should have that, you should have that, to anyone. Because you don't know anybody's background. This is one of my biggest issues with this whole idea of trying to have some kind of considered normal, right? But this is what we do as a society. We always have to, it's the herd mentality thing. We have to have something we all agree upon. I don't know. It's like that's what the only way we can exist is by having like an agreed social contract that we will follow, right? But like, so we have to have this kind of thing that we consider as normal. This is what we all did. That's normal, right? And anything outside of that we then like villainize, because like, how come you can't be normal, right? This is even where the whole, if you think about it, the lobotomies and all this, why were they doing that? Because people were going outside the norm. They weren't following the script. They weren't following the rules, quote unquote. And so, and it just made me sad for the child stars, because they truly, like, they are the ones whose childhoods were truly robbed more than anyone, like in the last maybe 50 years. They are the ones whose childhoods were truly robbed. Actually, let me add to that. Because from about the 1970s, I would say, 1970s. Like, I saw this clip. It's a really old clip, and it was of, hold on a minute. I've got it written in my notebook. I can't remember her name. Okay, there goes my pen. Hold on. Is it? Oh, gosh. It is Shirley Temple. Shirley Temple as like a kid. Hold on, I need to pick up this pen because it's going to bother me. Which, fun fact, I've also never had a Shirley Temple, the drink, which I would really like to have one, because I saw somebody having one the other day and I was like, I need one of those. But anyway, I saw this clip of Shirley Temple, and she was really young, right? Being held by like these 5 different men, like some kind of like exhibition, kind of like this is appropriate thing. We're not going to get into the inappropriateness of it all, right? But I'm just thinking, like, being a kid of that age, especially because being a child, you're trusting the people around you have your best interest at heart. And this is one of the things where I'm really passionate about kids and passionate about looking after them and actually looking after them, not just like saying we care about them. And then when it comes down to actually looking after them, we have every excuse in the book as to why the tiniest little grain of effort we put was actually all the effort we needed to, and we put everything into this. This is why I get really upset about those types of things, because I'm like, no, because kids actually, they need to be protected. They need to be guided, because they're going to trust the adults around them. And the only time that they're going to realize anything is going to be by the time it's way, way, way too late. Like Britney Spears now, right? Bless her heart. I feel so bad for her, because this is why I feel so bad for her. Look, her being her, and also having read her book, right? Most of it, I couldn't read the last part because it was too painful to read, to be honest. Because I knew a lot about the last part from whatever, and it's just too painful. And it's too painful to read. But like, it's the same thing with her, and like reading her book and how she came through her whole like kind of process. She started out when she was a kid. She used to see this, that, and the other at home. She didn't really like her home life for a number of reasons, but then she used to love listening to her nanny, I think it was, who used to sing all these gospel songs, and then she used to learn to sing gospel that ways, and then this, that, and the other. Next thing you know, she's being auditioned for stuff. She's really good. She loved to sing. It was like her one escape from just the life that she was living. You know what I'm saying? And then, and then again, where did she go wrong? She assumed, again, in almost like a childlike ignorance, that once she wanted to kind of run her own career for herself, that she'd be able to. But what she didn't realize is that's not how it went, because everybody around her was taking advantage of her. And so as soon as she got to that, that's when the resistance came up. That's when, everything starts to go downhill. And it's like, it's really, really sad that this is a tale that I feel like happens a lot of the time. I feel like a lot of celebrities are like that. I feel like a lot of celebrities, their parents really took advantage of, oh, if we just turn a blind eye. Because the other day I was researching about just hot, like, all these stories about the Dan Schneiders of it all, the people that were in the industry, and how like even Nickelodeon had hired already 2 convicted sexual abusers from the like outset of Nickelodeon even existing, right? And then we're not even getting into the Nickelodeon thing, because oh my gosh. But anyway, and I was thinking that all the time throughout the history of it all, every time that kids didn't really make it, a lot of the time it was because their parents were present, their parents didn't want them to be involved in certain things. And it's known in the industry that the industry likes for the parents to be not there. So like not on set, not around, leaving your kids with whoever, like leaving them to just be taken advantage of. And so my thing is just like, we've been acting like, and I wanted to believe that a lot of the things we see and hear in the entertainment industry are just like, one-offs. But I really like the writing's on the wall. You know what I mean, guys? It's clearly not the case. It's clearly across the board. It's clearly across the board. And like, it's so sad, all of it. Like when I think about it, and I truly feel for these child stars. Like I feel for them. I can't imagine what it's like to have like lived your whole life in that, and then come to the knowing of like what you've been through as an adult. Because like obviously we all go through that process where you just live your life, you're just there living, following whatever, and then we all hit a moment in our life, maybe you have a quarter life crisis, or more commonly a midlife crisis, right, where you're like, oh, I really feel like that's why these things happen, because people kind of look back and you go, oh, you know what I mean? And then everything kind of hits you like a ton of bricks, but there's like way too much to be done. And like, do you even have the time to even deal with it? Imagine being a celebrity where, again, people are not really sympathetic to famous people or even rich people, similar to, remember the Paris Hilton situation, which I never from the jump of Paris Hilton when I was a kid, did I ever look at her and go, oh, this dumb, blah, 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 blah. I always like, she's so lucky to be rich. I never did. And I never really have been that person, because you never know what people are going through. You never know what people are going through. And so I never judge, because just because I might be going through trauma while being broke doesn't mean you can't experience traumas while being rich. And that's why when everybody woke up, when they were like, oh, we didn't know all this stuff was happening to Paris. Oh my gosh, we didn't know. It's like, yeah, because the reason you didn't know is because you wanted to assume the worst. because she's rich, so of course her life has to be better than yours. This is why jealousy is such a problematic demon to deal with. We all feel jealous at some point, you know what I mean, about stuff. But that's the moment where you either turn that into inspiration, you use that to inspire you to do better, or sometimes you just need to cast that out in the name of Jesus. You know what I'm saying? And just like let the Lord take his way. And ask him to relieve you of that, because it does kind of tint your vision of what's in front of you. That's why it's dangerous to become jealous and bitter of what other people have. But nevertheless, you know, and so now people found out what she was going through. That's what I'm saying. It's so sad. And they've lived like, especially now where we're in a time where previously there wasn't so much access to seeing people online. I feel like this is the issue going to become a huge issue for my generation now in the next 20 years. Because we've all grown up on the internet, right? And we're all used to being on here, whether we've wanted to be on the internet or not. Because again, like I said, a lot of us, before we even made any choice to put ourselves out there, already out there, because our pictures or our videos are being shared, maybe for wholesome reasons, but the fact is they're on the internet that's free for everybody, right? Now, you know, that how that's going to affect people. Again, a lot of these kids I'm seeing, when their parents, they might make great videos explaining their parenting skills, and I might be like, oh, that's so lovely, or showing how their family operates. But then as an adult, and you know how people are weird, because people feel like people are weird. This parasocial relationship thing is very real, that people do feel like they know you. And I know for a fact that some of these kids growing up are going to be like, oh, I remember watching you and it was your 4-year-old birthday and you had a birthday party with the bunny rabbits. You were so cute. Like, that's creepy. I just want to tell you guys in advance that that's creepy. So don't go around doing that. Okay, and maybe they don't want to be in the public eye. Maybe they, and this is what I'm saying, there's going to be so much backlash. One of the reasons I have so much like just hatred of society is because I feel like when I'm going to be in middle-aged, right? Like when I'm going to be middle-aged, it's going to be the time where the older generation, all we're going to be doing is wiping you people's asses, you cowards who didn't do anything about the state of the world, right? And who lived off of the strength of those who came after the Second World War, right? That goes for the people I'm talking about older than the millennials. I'm talking about above the millennials. And then we're going to have to be dealing with the aftermath of all of this younger generation that you've all taken your hands off of. The orphan generation, which is the generation after mine. I can say my generation because I'm the oldest of Gen Z, right? I'm going to be having to deal with the aftermath because I'm seeing it coming. This is what I'm saying. I hate living here sometimes because I'm like, I can see the train, I can see the plane about to crash, and it's like we're just letting it crash. The aftermath of everybody waking up, of the younger kids who thought it was cute to be 8 years old doing a get ready with me, or to be 8 years old. Like I remember the other day, these are things that traumatize me when I'm just roaming the internet as an adult, right? In adult spaces, right? I don't frequent areas of children. I don't talk to children. Like if I had children on my channel, it's highly unlikely I would speak to them unless I was really concerned because this is something really concerning. And then in which case I'll be saying something to get them help. You know what I mean? But anyway, I don't encourage having a childlike audience on purpose. Unlike other people who capitalize off of that, but I'm not going to say who I'm thinking of, Mr. Beast. I'm going to be dealing with the aftermath of these guys who are going to wake up and see all this stuff and their prefrontal lobe is going to have connected and all of that. And it's going to be chaos. By the way, so this is what I'm not looking forward to at all. I'm trying to get as many things in order for my generation as possible prior to that happening. You know what I mean? This is why I take this stuff really seriously, because whatever we're seeing with the entertainment industry people now, it's only going to be worse. Because like the same way that's all they've known, my generation, all we've known is being on the internet. All we've known is posting everything online. All we've known is having millions, billions of people having access to critique your every move, whether you ask for it or not. It's all we've ever known. And the times when we were allowed to do it was before we had the ability to make the decision as to whether it was good or not. So even if, let's say, guys, I had only started ever putting myself out online when I started my YouTube channel, right? There was already enough stuff of me online far before that. That's far worse, potentially, than what I've put out myself. This is what I'm saying. I'm saying there's no point me now not like oversharing because it's already too far. We're already too far gone. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's why I feel for them. I do feel for them, and I feel for the younger generation. I feel for the youngers in my generation. I feel for them because they're really, a lot of the stuff that they're doing, it's just normal. It's just what everybody's doing around them. They're not trying to cause problems. They're not trying to do anything. This is just all they know. This is all they've ever known. You know, that's why I get sick sometimes of older people talk about, oh, I miss back in the 70s when we used to go out partying, this and that. Like, first of all, you're all on psychedelics, doing cocaine, doing the heroin, doing this, that, and the other. So start talking to me about how good the 70s were. Tell me how good they were while you were not on drugs. But secondly, you also weren't on the internet. Secondly, you weren't also out for the slaughter of the jury of the sheep, or like, again, the likes of the Britney Spears, the people in the entertainment industries. Now that we've had that, which is a newer thing in society that wasn't here 100 years ago, for them it's harder because they're always used to scrutiny. They're being scrutinized for every little thing. So no, they didn't get to have some nice time where they got to go and be doing psychedelics by the lake and skinny dipping and using every other slur and every other word that you can possibly imagine, with nobody seeing anything happening with their fat selves, like a lot of you. No, they have to now just deal with the fact that from before they even understood how they even knew how to spell the word internet, the whole entire world had access to commenting on them, seeing things from them, knowing who they are, etc. And it's horrifying. It really is. So I feel for the child stars, and I feel for the children, child influencers as well. I really do. I'm scared for them because this is the world we live in. And like, this is what I'm saying, you guys. Like, it's not a joke when it comes to kids. This is why I don't find it funny. And this is why I really have a lot to say about it, because I'm like, it's all fun and games until it isn't. That's the point. It's all fun and games until it isn't. It's all nice to think, oh, we're just a nice little family channel. We're appropriate. We're this. But you don't know how your kid's going to feel. What if your kid just wants to do a nice, humble job and not be known? But then they're going to be recognized because they have millions and millions of people that used to watch them. And then there are people like, oh, I spotted so-and-so with their cameras. Oh, I spotted so-and-so. And they just want to live a normal life. But you never gave them that option. It's because we don't think that far into the future. That's the problem. We don't think, or we do think and we're just not honest about our intentions, because like I said, it seems really interesting. Even Bad Baby, everyone talks, what's her name? What's her first name again? Danielle Bregoli. Catch me outside, how about that, girl? People have a lot to say about her. People critique her. Oh, well, she's this. Also, she's suffering with cancer. Bless her heart at the moment. Ain't nobody talking about the fact her mum was emailing Dr. Phil since she was 2 years old. 2 years old. Her mum was looking for a paycheck since her daughter was 2 years old, emailing Dr. Phil. And then people want to say, and this is what I'm saying, like, at some point, we got to call the spade a spade, and we got to call out the elephant in the room. Because how are you going to tell me that these people truly had these other people's best interests at heart? How are you going to convince me of that? Genuinely speaking. And that's what I'm trying to say, like, we're really living in just the decisions of others, and like, it just makes it so obvious. Like, when you're like, especially working with kids, there's nothing that tells you about the state of the world more than kids. And there's literally studies shown about that, by the way, which I found a whole organization that talks about this, that society's treatment of children directly. Oh, I talk about this in one of my upcoming projects. Stay tuned for my birthday, everyone. This is the state of how society treats children actually directly correlates to the economic growth of the society, i.e. the more society looks after the children, the better the well-being of the children, more that's a higher priority, the higher success of the society as a whole. Duh, because you look after the kids, then the kids grow up to be healthy adults, then healthy adults grow up to build a healthy world. But we're too busy being selfish, and we're too busy playing jury of the sheeple. Anyways, I just thought I'd leave that there because I really feel for them. I feel for the people in the entertainment industry. I feel for these child influencers. I feel for them because they have no idea. The child stars had no idea what's coming for them, and the child influencers have no idea what's coming for them. And there's nothing I can do about it. It's just this thing that we're just going to have to deal with when it comes along. But it's sad, and it's sad that people don't think this far ahead. We should be long-term thinkers. This is the problem with us as humans. We love to think of the short term, just like Adam and Eve. Eve wasn't worried about dying. The devil confirmed she wasn't going to die now, so she's like, cool. But what she wasn't thinking about, what about dying eternally? And that was the thing that she didn't think about. Anyways, you guys, if life's a game, let's play to win. God bless you all. God loves you. I love you. And I'll see you in my next one.